when you're doing a sock from toe up to cuff, it's very important that you consider how you're going to bind off. And a standard bind off, as you probably know if you tried to stretch one, is very, very tight. And you don't want to do that on a sock. For one thing, it can cut off circulation on your calf. And also, it's very hard to put a sock on. So what I do is an invisible bind off. And this is the easiest one I've ever found. And what I've done is it works on knit one, purl one, and the preparation row is to, on the first row, and because we're knitting in the round, is to bring the yarn forward and slip over the purl, knit the knit stitch, bring the yarn forward, slip over the purl, bring the yarn back, knit the next stitch. You do that for one row, and then on the next row you purl the purl stitches and bring the yarn to the back and slip the knit stitches. And that's the preparation. Once you've done that, and you can do that for 2 rows or 4 rows, doesn't really matter. I've done it for 2 rows because I don't want a big tubular thing at the top. And this really looks very much like the top of a commercially made sock. Now the first step, and notice I have my knit stitch on this needle, is to go through the purl stitch as if to knit. Okay, and I bring the yarn fairly tight, and then I go through the knit stitch and the knit stitch on either side of that purl stitch as if to purl wise, and I pull the yarn tight, and then I go through that purl stitch purl wise, pull the yarn fairly tight, and I slip those stitches off the needle. And that's all there is to it. I go through the purl stitch as if to knit. I go through the knit stitch that's over here, and sometimes that can be kind of hard to see, so you need to identify those stitches, and if you have difficulty in seeing those stitches, you may want to get a safety pin or something to mark it. And so I'm going purlwise through the 2 knit stitches on either side of that purl stitch, pull it fairly tight, and then go purlwise through the purl stitch, drop those stitches from the needle. And you can see that it's giving me a nice tubular top. I'll do a few more. Knitwise through the purl, purlwise through the 2 knits, oh, by the way, cut a fairly long strand of yarn to do this. You do not want to run out of yarn. And then purlwise and drop. So in shorthand, it's knit the purl the 2 knits, purl the 1 drop. And once you get in a rhythm, it's quite easy. Now the difficult thing about this is that if you have difficulty in identifying stitches, if you don't know what a knit stitch looks like, that's the thing that can make this hard. And I have found that in knitting of any sort, the best step, particularly for any kind of finishing, is to know what your stitches look like. Because finishing depends on being able to identify those things. And that is the sewn invisible bind off.